Welcome to the 0+1 podcast.
Welcome to the 0+1 podcast. I am your host, Hayden Wade. This is episode 2. Yes, I know I screwed up the counts in the last 2. Forgot I was going to do episode 0, the intro. You'll definitely hear me refer to the wrong numbers in the previous episodes. I'm trying to get those straight going forward, but let's hop right into this. So this is my second time recording this episode. I figured I'd record it a second time because I really wanted to give a different perspective on some of the things that have been going on in the world due to COVID-19. I think it'll be really relevant to some of you who are listening to this. So we're going to talk about why it's a great time to be a software engineer or become a software engineer, how you can be an effective team member while working from home, and then we're going to dive deep into some of the topics that we discussed in the last episode with Anas, things like handling failure, building a great resume, how to get an internship, and kind of expand on those things and all the little pieces in between. So first off, I just want to say my thoughts go to all those who are battling this terrible virus and to all the healthcare workers who are risking their lives to help others like us. So please stay home and practice social distancing for the sake of others. This is scary stuff, and someone you know will die from the virus, which is sad to think about. So make sure that you're doing all that you can to protect others and hope that they do the same for you. So enough about that. Let's hop right in. So some of you listening right now might have got recently laid off from your job. You're struggling to figure out where next month's rent's going to come from. And I'll tell you one thing, if you stick with me through this podcast, I'll show you the steps of how to become a software engineer. And this can become your new source of income. So you can put food on the table and provide for your family. I won't be able to cover everything in this episode and all that, but if you're eager and you're passionate about becoming a software engineer, be sure to drop a comment below, as well as send me a DM personally, and I'm happy to help you. All my contact info will be in the show notes below. Others of you might already be software engineers or students, so those of you who are software engineers, you probably really haven't been impacted by the virus. I know I'm super grateful for being a software engineer and still having my job. Working from home isn't a huge deal. I've been doing it on and off my whole career. I'm sure most of you have as well. Same for like our workflow. Our workflow hasn't really changed because at the end of the day, we just need a laptop to get our job done. And if you're a student, maybe your year got cut short. I guess the future will only let us know if you guys will go back to school and what that's going to look like as you progress through college. I definitely am going to provide some more helpful tips on like how to get internships and get yourself out there when you're practicing social distancing. And I think that's the additional spin I wanted to provide and the main reason behind reshooting this episode. So to start off, I wanted to give you 3 tips to being an effective teammate while working from home. So number 1, the key to working efficiently is to limit your distractions. So find a place in your house that's quiet, somewhere there's no distractions. So if you like look out the windows and you get easily distracted by people walking by, maybe find a room that doesn't have windows or close the blinds. Set up your own little office because you don't know how long this is going to last. And then another big thing is get up in the morning, get ready like you would any other day that you're going to go into the office, because this helps you get in the mindset of thinking, okay, I'm going to work. And then now once you sit down in front of your computer, you got your phone, making calls, whatever you're doing, you're really sitting through that and it gets you going in that mindset a lot quicker. You don't have to say, "Oh, I'm just going to sit on in my bed with my computer." Some of you that might work just fine. Others, I know they really struggle to get into the zone and focus. So really help limit those distractions. Definitely will help you work more efficiently. Second is over communicate. I think this is huge. So letting your team know that you're going to be away from your keyboard. So, hey, I got to go tend to my kids for a second. Um, this doesn't always have to be an email or a message to your boss or whatever. Maybe consider using your status in Slack or in Skype. So you can say, hey, going to lunch, you can put a little icon, whatever you want. Then that way, just communicate that out to your team. And then that way your team will realize, hey, this person's, they're not there. And they know where you are instead of say, oh, they're just not really working from home. They're just slacking off. It really says, oh, okay, this person's got other things. A lot of times, sometimes that you don't have time to set your status. Like if your kid runs in, you need to attend to them. I get it. We're all in the same boat, so people definitely really understand. And then I think if you're trying to problem solve or communicate about a challenging problem, that takes a lot of explanation. Sometimes it's easier just to hop on a phone call or video chat, share your screen, and go through those things, and you'll get to the answer a lot faster. So the average person can speak 120 words per minute, but you only can type 33 words per minute. So it's a lot faster. It's about 4 times faster if you do the math to speak. So things that have a lot of follow-up questions, it's probably easier to just get on a phone call. But if you are going to resort to text, make sure you are clear and concise and really articulate what you're trying to say. Text isn't super great either for some things, especially sometimes things can be taken out of context, or text doesn't really have emotions. Sure, emojis are great, but at the end of the day, it's still a weak attempt at trying to show emotion through text, which I think if you're going to confront somebody about something, or if something's not working the way you want it, and you don't want to come off like sounding like a prick, maybe just call the person, let them know, or super clearly communicate how you felt. So if you received a message and you didn't like how it sat with you, let that person know, because the only way they're going to know how you feel is by articulating that. And a lot of times they don't know that you received it that way. They'd be like, oh, hey, I'll try to be more cognizant of this going forward. I think a lot of people are super understanding. Happens to everybody. It's unavoidable. Yeah, and at the end of the day, everybody just wants to work together and build cool stuff and hang out and have a good time. Nobody means to try to be mean to somebody else for the most part. And if they are, honestly, it's probably not a good work environment. I would say get a new job, but that's probably challenging right now, depending on your situation. Yeah, so enough with that. I say definitely over communicate. Use appropriate forms of communication for the different situations you might face. And then third tip I have is, if you miss talking to people and interacting with them, if you miss that collaboration, set away some time to catch up with a teammate, see if they got any fun side projects they're working on, or just see how they're doing, And then another cool thing is you can ask them like what they've been working on, or if they've learned anything recently, and then have them teach you about that. And that way you can still feel that connection with your team, and you can continue to grow and learn more like you normally would in a setting where you're working directly with your team and communicating and collaborating together on a daily basis. So that's my 3 tips on how to be an effective teammate while working from home. Yeah, so that was kind of a lot. Now that we've covered some things that are kind of relevant to the current situation, their daily lives, let's take a deep dive into a few topics from the last episode. Last episode, I interviewed Anas. He's a young software engineer who has been chasing his dreams. We talk about getting your first internship or software engineering job, handling failure, talk about what makes a good resume, as well as the numbers game. I'll try my best to add in alternatives that will help you succeed in these areas while we're in the state of social distancing. Yeah, so you might be like, why the heck should you listen to me? Well, first off, I've been interviewing candidates for a wide range of positions, everything from interns to senior software engineers to project managers to business analysts. You name it. I've been an interviewer, and then I've also been an interviewee for several interviews throughout my career. So I spent a lot of time on both sides of the table, and I secretly enjoy it. And that's kind of why I'm here to talk to you guys, because I want you guys to succeed. I've helped a few friends land some of their dream jobs, and now I want to share that with more people. And I figured this is a great platform to do it on. So yeah, let's hop into when to start looking for internships. So if you're in college, computer science or software engineering major, definitely start freshman year. Why start freshman year? A lot of people are going to say, oh, you'll never get an internship, blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't know that. So I encourage you to go to career fairs. Make sure to get your resume ready, go to the career center beforehand, have them look it over, give you tips, and your resume doesn't have to be anything special. Find existing format that's plain, basic, and just copy it, fill it in with your stuff. By going to these career fairs as soon as you can, you meet these people who come to the career fair. So these recruiters or different individuals at these companies who come, they oftentimes go to the same schools year after year. So they get to know you, and by giving your resume, you get entered into their system. So a lot of things that I didn't learn this till later is that they hang on to your resume for a long time. So I applied to a position my freshman year of college. I did not hear anything from the company. 5 years later, 1 year after I graduated, they hit me up. It was like, hey, we had your resume from whatever year it was back when I was in college. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And they're like, hey, we want to interview you with you. It looks like you're up to some cool stuff now. I was like, this is great. Let's do this. So yeah, it's like that's super eye-opening. So definitely keep that in mind. Get your resume, go to the career fair, get to know the people at the companies, and year after year, they're going to remember you. So what Anas did was I don't think he went freshman year, second sophomore year, he ended up going, ended up not getting an internship, and he was like, man, I really got to get an internship junior year. So he found out what he needed to do, what the recruiters were looking for, and he tried to mirror that. He did side projects, learned different tech, updated his resume, and then he applied to over 200 different positions, which is a huge numbers game, he said. And I think, to help with that, make sure your LinkedIn matches your resume. Kind of have it one and the same. Because a lot of recruiters also go on LinkedIn, and that's how they source candidates. So make sure you have that up to date to match your resume. I think that's a huge thing. And Oz talked about how he, when he updated his resume and included things that recruiters were looking for, he got more responses back and more leads. I'm not saying go put stuff on your resume that you don't know, because that's people see through that right away. So yeah, put stuff on there, but you can use buzzwords that apply to the things you're working on, and by doing that, it helps you rank. So it's just like search engine optimization. So why do these sites end up at the top of Google? For very specific reasons. These are popular terms. So blockchain, it's huge, right? So if you have any experience in that, or you worked on a project to do with blockchain and you had that on your resume is probably going to be higher in the list than somebody who didn't have that and they just have some basic words on their resume. Yeah. So really comes down to applying, having a good resume. We can dive into more tactical resume tips later. But I think for this episode, kind of just highlight on the minimum, and then we can build onto that in later episodes. So how is interviewing for an internship different than a full-time position? I would say Nas had mentioned, you can get an internship with mostly behavior questions and get through fine with minimal technical skills. I would definitely agree with that. Coming from the Midwest, I think that a lot of companies, even surprisingly for some full-time positions, they favor behavior too much and less on technical skills. But if you want to land a job at any of the big tech companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, you name it, you're definitely going to have those technical skills when it comes to like algorithms and data structures. Start looking into more like system design stuff as well. But I think for your first internship, especially if you're going to get one like freshman or sophomore year, they're really looking for, are you a learner? Can we teach this person how to code? Because some curriculums, surprisingly, don't teach you how to code your first year of college. Which I can get a whole nother topic about my thoughts on college and whether or not you should go to college to be a software engineer. But we'll save that for another episode. Another thing you want to consider is what kind of internship do you want? Do you, some people do co-ops where they do it through one of the semesters and get credits for it. Others just do it in the summer. A lot of times you can think about an internship as an opportunity to get a full-time job. So a lot of companies will have you intern during the summer. They like you, they'll have you come back on full-time after you graduate. That's what happened with me, and it worked out great. A lot of people sometimes come up to graduation, they're freaking out because they don't have a job, but software engineering is a hot industry. You can find a job if you put in a little work. Yeah, so when it comes time for studying for interviews, you really got to come up with a plan. So what Anas did was he focused on the things he wasn't good at. He continued to practice from multiple different sites. So Crack the Coding Interview book is a good place to start. LeetCode, Skillshare, HackerRank are some of the different sites that he used. A site that I've been using a lot lately is Pramp. It's a peer-to-peer interviewing platform. I can put a link down below to all of these. Feel free to check them out. Might have a few affiliate links to hook you up with some free interviews on Pramp as well. Yeah, so Skillshare is a site that you can go on there and find a bunch of different courses. So if you know nothing about coding, you can go there and find a course about learning C++, learning JavaScript, whatever language that might interest you and that's relevant in the time, in the current times. Another big thing is understand how you learn. So Anas understood that he was a visual learner, so he really, when he was learning things, he found material that was more visual, so he could wrap his head around it, and then that way it stuck better with him. So Just understand how you learn, whether it's reading or learning by examples, whatever it may be. Figure that out for yourself and continue to practice that. LeetCode, HackerRank, there are other sites that just provide problems with a little coding environment where you can solve those problems, and they have answers and different test cases you can run. So those are good sites to learn. They're free. And then HackerRank, a lot of companies even use that to interview candidates. So by practicing on that, you're already getting familiar with the platform, so it'll just be natural when you go into those interviews for like phone technical screens and stuff like that. I have seen on a few other sites that depending how you perform on the practice ones, you can even be submitted to companies as oh, this person's smart. You should consider them as a candidate is essentially what happens. So I think that's pretty cool. Sometimes you can skip to final round interviews is what's advertised. I haven't tried it. If any of you do, definitely drop a comment below and let me know how it goes. Yeah, so let's talk about the importance of a resume. I already mentioned a little bit this before. Keywords for search engine optimization. This helps you show up in whether it's LinkedIn or if you have it on your portfolio site, you'll show up higher in the Google results or whatever search engine somebody might be using. And I already mentioned this, but make sure your LinkedIn matches. Make sure you have a nice bio in your LinkedIn at the top that catches somebody's attention. This will increase your success on like getting your contact rate will increase. It did for us, it has for me. I significantly know it, and then especially if you're looking for a job, hop in LinkedIn and you can check the box. Let employers know that you're available and you're looking for a job. You'll get probably, I know for me, my in-mail is probably double, if not triple, when I turn that on. It's quite significant. Make sure to keep it to one page. This is super important. As an interviewer and looking for additional team members, I'm going through and I'll look at a resume that I get from my manager, and if I can't decide within 30 seconds if I want to go ahead with a phone screen for this individual based on the resume. So if you got multiple pages, there's no way I'm going to make it through that in 30 seconds. So I need to know within 30 seconds whether or not I want to go forward with this person. So keeping it minimal, nothing fancy, and one page helps achieve that. Make sure the most important stuff is at the top. That way, because that's the first thing a reader looks at is the top. So make sure the most important stuff's at the top. Be clear and concise. Focus on things that you worked on and not necessarily the things that your team did. Because at the end of the day, the interviewers are really looking for what did you work on? What was your role in X project? Some of the different ways you can stand out, whether you're at a career fair or on your resume. So one little thing that I did on my resume was I had a little QR code in the top that just was a link to my portfolio site. It's something little, minimal, doesn't take up much space. If you sneak it up into the header, there's usually some white space you can utilize for something like that. But if you have a lot of content, maybe consider just leaving a link, little link to your website instead. So I just mentioned on portfolio site. I think it's great. I think it's important. Not a lot of people have these, and it definitely makes you stand out from the rest. So Anas built one. I've had one ever since I learned how to code. It's an additional way for people to discover you as well and learn more about you. I feel like you have a more personal connection. So you can have like social links, resume, side projects. You can elaborate a lot more on your site than you would on your resume, which is great because a lot of times you run out of room on your resume and people is like, oh, I want to know more about this project. If it's an open source project you work on, they'll probably going to go to your portfolio site and see the work you did. And not only is it a place for people to read more about you and learn about you, it's a place to show off your skills. Your portfolio site, you can think of it as a coding sample. So, oh, here's something I built. I know when I interview people, I'll either bring it up if they have something neat on their website and ask them more details about it and the considerations they did. I'll even go as far as right away dig into the source code, see how it's formatted, see if they're following best practices, things like that. Go to their GitHub site. So those are all the important reasons why you might want to have a portfolio site. Yeah, so we talked about importance of a resume, how to stand out using your portfolio site. I think another way to stand out at career fairs specifically is make sure your resume is on resume paper. I know a lot of us right now aren't going to be going to career fairs. We're coming up on summer, school's been canceled, and with social distancing, they're not going to have public career fairs. So I think it's important to be active on social media. And I think the platforms you really got to focus on is LinkedIn. I've even seen people offering jobs out on Twitter, so definitely be on the lookout. Network with other individuals. I've seen a lot of meetups also canceled, so you won't be able to network there. So consider having a virtual meetup. Hit up those same people in that meetup group if they're not already doing this, and be like, hey, let's do a virtual one, and suggest you present something on something you want, or solicit, say, hey, I want to know more about this. Is anybody willing to present? And just do a virtual meetup, I think would be a really great idea. And not only that, a lot of times employers sponsor these events, and they have recruiters there, and they're always looking for talent. So really, those are ways for you to network from your home, as well as if you did go to, if this coronavirus does dissipate and we get through this, meetups are also a great place to just go in person and network. You'll meet a ton of people. Failure can be hard. You might get rejected from an interview, or just had a really bad interview and you fell apart, or you failed a coding assessment. I think what comes down to it is really figure out what went wrong, look back on it, what went wrong, and try to do it differently the next time. Don't try to repeat the same thing. It probably sounds cliche, but honestly, that's what Anas did. He looked at what went wrong and what didn't the interviewers like, or the recruiters, and he changed that. So he realized that his resume didn't have certain tech on it that they were looking for. So he really tailored it to the positions that he was applying for, as well as picked up additional skill sets to make himself more marketable. Yeah, so definitely don't get discouraged by getting rejected or not getting any interviews. It takes time. Anas had 15 to 20 interviews before he ended up getting an offer. Another thing too is don't sell yourself short. If you get rejected at Fortune 200 company and you get rejected again, and it's like, well, maybe I'm not cut out for a company this big, or this type of position. Well, I wouldn't say don't sell yourself short. Aim for the top. This is one thing I didn't really think about, but Anas brought it up in the last episode. If you aim for the top, you're going to probably score at some good companies that are a little bit lower. That's just the nature of the beast. But who knows? Maybe aiming for the top, you end up getting a job you would have never expected. So that's a good thing to do. Anas submitted over 200 plus applications just for his internships. And then he submitted a bunch for his full-time position as well. So definitely look back and reflect on each of your interviews. Take a moment after what went well, what didn't go so hot, and focus on, hey, I did these things good, pat yourself on the back. And then the things that didn't go well, I would say, just focus on how can you improve those, and figure out how to make yourself more marketable, and just execute and do better the next round. I think one thing that plays into this is taking interviews at companies you don't want to work for. I say this not to sound like, oh, I'm going to waste these people's time, because I see it as twofold. It's one, you might discover a place you hadn't thought you would enjoy working at by learning through the interview process more about the company. And then I think second is by doing more interviews, you're getting practice and you're getting better and you're learning from it. So as Anas was going through these 15 interviews, he was getting more practice. The company he did the first interview at, he didn't get an offer. If he would have interviewed at that company at the 12th interview, he probably would have did a lot better, made it to the next round of interviews. So it's really coming into it with a different perspective, right? So continue to practice, continue to learn and reflect, I think are huge. And then if you notice, hey, I keep doing this, nothing's working out, change things up, try something different, change your study plan up, change the way you respond to questions. So if you always go to the same answers for the questions they ask, maybe try to change those up, maybe talk about a different project. Maybe they're just not getting through to the interviewer. Phone interviews, try dressing up. Get in that mindset that you're doing an interview, dress up, even though they can't see you. Let out a battle cry in the mirror before you're gonna do the phone interview, and figure out where the best place to take that phone interview. Maybe don't sit in bed and talk on the phone. Maybe get all dressed up, sit at your desk, get prepared, have a notebook, get focused, and maybe jot down a few things, few projects you worked on, and keywords to help trigger your mind when questions do come up. And then so after you've done all of that, you've studied hard, you learn new skills, you built your portfolio site, you've interviewed at a bunch of places, and you've got that offer. Anas said it was the greatest feeling he's had, and I would agree. It's great when you're like, oh, you let out that sigh of relief. All that hard work has paid off, and now it's really up to you to decide whether or not that offer stands to what you feel your value is. So definitely know your value. Ask yourself, okay, what offer would you be happy with? And then stick to that too, right? Sure, you might be like, well, another 5K would be nice. But really, at the end of the day, are you going to be happy working at this company? Did you enjoy the people you were interviewed with? Sure, sometimes it depends on your financial situation, and I get that, especially maybe right now, if you're out of a job, maybe finding some job is better than none, especially if you're just getting into software engineering. Do you feel valued by the company based on your experience thus far through the interview process? Do you see yourself working there? Take the time to think about, what do you want to work on? are the problems that they're solving? Will it help you grow your career? Is it things you're passionate about? And if you say yes to all those, it's probably a good place to work at. Sure, also consider, okay, will it help you grow your resume? Or are you going to work at a company that has proprietary tech and that's not going to really be applicable elsewhere? Definitely some things to consider. Really focus on, does it get closer to your career goals? So I think first off, make sure you have career goals. What do you want to do in the near future to the long term, right? So once you have those set, align your offer with that and kind of focus on that. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. We talked a lot about some of the basic things you need to get discovered as a candidate when you're out there looking for jobs. So be sure to focus on your resume, portfolio site, LinkedIn, and networking. These are all things you can do at home. There's sites, Microsoft Word even has a thing to help you build your resumes, and those are great templates to start with because they're minimal. They know what works. A lot of research and data has gone into creating that product, so definitely use that. And then a huge thing, if you're sending your resume to somebody, make sure it's in PDF format instead of Word or another format. Definitely send it as PDF. Yeah, and then GitHub's a great place to show off your work as well. Check that out. That's it for episode 2. If there's anything else you guys want to know more about, or if you just want to hop on a live stream with me and chat about whatever you want, whether it's maybe a cool project you're working on, or the struggles you're having trying to find a job, or you want to learn more about software engineering and how to get your first job, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to chat, and I think we're off to a good start here. I hope you're enjoying the episodes. If there's any feedback, definitely let me know. I look forward to seeing you in the next episodes. Thanks for listening to the 0+1 podcast. Until next time, I'm Hayden Wade. Ciao. Thanks for listening to the 0+1 podcast. If you made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe. Appreciate all the support out there. Definitely leave a comment below. Any things you want to talk about next. Thanks again. Stay healthy and safe.